Flourish, nigga. Flourish, nigga. Flourish.
Ziggy, Ziggy, Ziggy. Ziggy, Ziggy, Ziggy. Ziggy Marley's a Zionist.
Diggy. Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Diggy Simmons, can't you see?
Like, yo, I could go on because, like, when I was in Jamaica, I might start with this anecdote, but I told you I went to the Marley Museum. I wrote about
You
it,
did
but did
tell
I
me
tell
that.
you I
You
went
wrote
to the
about it.
Marley
I saw
Museum
what you
over
wrote
there?
about it.
Yeah,
I saw what you wrote about it.
that shit's great. That shit's like billionaire Rastas, you know what I'm saying?
Billionaire Rastas roll the nation in the station. I mean, they Rastas low-key been wanting to be Hasidic Jews, you know what I'm saying?
Rasta billion.
Yeah, sense a billion.
Rasta billion, cents a million.
Rasta billion, sense a million.
Oh, man. Even black billionaires is heaven sent. We all have been sent. Even Illuminati is heaven sent. Oh my God.
Even my tax debt is heaven sent. Yes. Even
Not
my
more than
back
mine.
rent is heaven sent. Black people about to start flipping the script. It's all heaven sent, you know what I mean? But
It's all heaven sent. Oh man, the CIA is gonna cut off the broadcast for this one. The CIA is tapped in.
the CIA is heaven sent.
Even the CIA is heaven sent.
The CIA is heaven sent.
Oh my God. We all have been sent. Welcome.
Do you need me to give another intro or are you gonna do it?
Nah, you should give another intro because you're great with the improv, man. You're terrific with the improv.
The heat is on. The heat is on. We're back.
The heat is on.
Well, with the son of Sidney Poitier, you know what I'm saying, for episode 2 of Smart Dumb Negus. He's also he's in the Sleeping in My Bed remix.
Somebody's
video is one of the extras.
Somebody's sleeping in my bed.
Also used to be Neo's hairline stand-in.
Somebody's taking my place. Yo, you know what my vocal stem was this week?
What?
I wanna be the one that you believe in. Your heart is sent from heaven. Well, as soon as we started doing the heaven sent shit, my vocal stem became Keisha Cole.
I had one this week. It's crazy because now everything I do according to Instagram means I'm autistic now, or I have some type of, I got brain damage like my Caribbean parents used to say. Damn, I had one this week that was something. I forgot it already. We might
from heaven.
We getting into this umlautery.
Yo, J to the
to the umlaut.
Umlaut Johnson. That actually, because it's like he's got some 5%er, but then he's also got, the capitalism of it all.
He did supreme mathematics capitalism.
He did supreme mathematics. Honestly, that's like the proof the math works. That's the proof the daily math worked.
He did the math. You know what I'm saying?
Math for real.
Because you know why? Because Freeway told him, you do the math.
You know what I'm saying? Math.
She want to roll with a thug that rap. You do the math. He did the math.
Yo, Hov never slacking, man.
You know what I'm saying? Yo, you know what's funny? We got to get into the Jay-Z shit because he's so culturally important. Because I don't want to be the guy that, like, now I'm at the point of my career I'm talking about other rappers. I do that privately with my friends. But Jay-Z is so important. Whether you love him or hate him, he's so important.
Jay-Z's a stamp, man. Jay-Z is a stamp.
He's so important in the culture. And because of that, he's almost automatically going to be critiqued in some way on something he does, particularly,
The proof in that specifically is he has a line even for what we're talking about. So, you either die, live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like his catalog is so extensive, so thorough, so brilliant that everything that's happened to him or will happen to you is covered.
Yeah.
Like every single thing. Like we talk a lot about like nonfiction raps because we are from the school of nonfiction raps. I write. First of all, I write raps. A lot of niggas don't know that, but I write raps, and I think if you are a student of rap composition, if you're a student of rap cadence, there is no other master than Jay-Z. Like he is a master of rap cadence and then also building mantras out of very pithy phrases. Like he shows you that poetry is supposed to come in brief. It's like, yo, I just work for a company and their whole fucking premise was smart brevity. Like they were like, yeah, I'm gonna deliver you the news in the smartest, shortest bullet points that you can receive. And actually, smart brevity, Jay-Z did that like 30 years ago. Like he was smart and brief and concise and memorable before anyone thought of him as popular. He is one of the most masterful writers of rap that there ever has been and ever will be.
Undeniably. The brilliance and brevity, I think, came a little later in how he defined his voice,
For sure, for
because
sure.
that wasn't necessarily his style in his underground rise.
Yeah, he was biggity biggity. He was
Jigada,
wiggity sniggity.
jigada.
Yeah, and then
Jigada.
also, there's the Camp Low influence. There's the Jazzo influence. He has always also been and this is not true of people. This is not always true of people who are masters of substance. He's also been a master of style. I actually venture that he's been a master of style more than he's been a master of substance, but maybe it's because I don't necessarily take to the substance. That could be like he is form and content personified. He knows how to do form very, very well, and he also knows how to lace the content for a certain type of nigga. And I feel like maybe when I was a kid and a teen, I was more the type of person to take his values to heart. But when I became an adult, I more appreciated the style and kind of left the values where they were because I couldn't get with all his values. So that's definitely like, I wonder, and I wonder this about you too, because you've been listening to him as well. Like, is that something you can leave behind? Can you leave behind the artist's values? Even like, not, I'm talking about his actual artistic work. I'm not talking about his values as a person. Like his values as a person, this is separate, but what he's declared in his art, can you leave that behind and still be a great, supporter or appreciator of his?
Here's the thing about that question. We conflate Jay-Z's persona and his personhood because he's allowed us to. Jay-Z told us what he was going to do. Jay-Z told us he was a businessman. You know what I'm saying? He gave us, we call him capitalist now because our value systems may have changed. And we look at it like I don't know if we're looking at him like we look sometimes at Dave Chappelle for being out of touch because he's rich. But I don't know if that's necessarily true. And then the part about substance, I think there's a lot of people who would dare to disagree that maybe, that hold his gospels in a certain regard. And I don't fault them because in terms of affirming who he is and the benchmarks he set of what he would do, he did them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the tricky part for me, where he's a style icon who is also, and I think you just made mention of it, an ideologue. So he espouses the values of capitalism, like every person for himself, dog eat dog. And I think when it's convenient and when it's stylistically more relevant, he espouses the values of Black freedom and liberation movements, which are very collective, right? Like they are collective in principle, they are cooperative in principle. But I don't think he's necessarily moved like a person who's collective and cooperative in principle in the way his lyrics might hint at.
The there's a thing, I think he's an apostle of a doctrine that he didn't create, and that's why he's still here. There's many peer groups that resonated with his message or the message he projected, and we're calling it capitalist now, but to many they view it what at its former name, which was the American dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we're alluding to right now, just to give the viewers context and like, thank you for tuning in to Smart Dumb Negus. Like, thank you for tuning in. Like, I really appreciate it. But I think what we're riffing off of is that he just recently did an interview. And in a piece that I wrote recently, I said that Jay-Z is like Black men's State of the Union. He's like the FDR fireside chat. When he says something, when he drops, even if it's an interview, people listen. And the interviewer, Fraser Tharp from GQ, was really astute to point out that it's also been a long time since he did one of these interviews. It's been since 444, which was now 8 years ago, right? Not 8 full years, but the pandemic, and he's been silent, actually, relatively, both in his art and his public statements for a while. So when he comes out and says, hey, like, I have something to say, we listen. And I think that's earned. I'm never going to down him for wanting to project his viewpoint. But I also think that in addition to him maybe wanting to speak up because he has a tour, a couple of show dates coming up, I think there's this issue of how he can launder his legacy, because it seems like in the last year and a half, and he alludes to this, that there's been a lot more Jay-Z scrutiny, like Jay-Z the man, like Jay-Z the person. I think we could all have scrutinized his lyrics, whether you're talking about misogyny or whether you're talking about this sort of schizophrenic or confused politic between Black collectivism and capitalism.
I'm Che Guevara with bling on. I'm Che Guevara with bling on.
Yeah, it's like he's such a great predictor of rap trends, because it's like he can say he's Che Guevara with bling on, and then it makes it less unreasonable that Kanye's like, I'm the Black Hitler. Like, it's like it all becomes the same fucking nebulous idea.
He became Basquiat. The Basquiat with the Basquiat.
First of all, the Jigawig, I want everybody to know that this is this is a title sponsored Jigawig. This is a Freeform Locks title sponsored Rock Nation Jigawig from from himself, from Hove himself.
You got the Jigawiggers, got them Jigawiggers.
Got Jigawiggers.
Got the Jigawiggers. Jigawiggers. Jigawigs, you see? He probably come out with those, I'm a businessman.
I'm a businessman.
Watch, when he's in his 70s, he gonna have Jigawigs for niggas. And all the niggas that was trapping in the 90s and all that.
Did you see the interview? Did you see the physical interview?
I did. I thought it was great. I mean,
it was a great interview.
Jay-Z is at a stage. This may be inevitable for someone in his position, but we're also highlighting him amongst the main consumer of digital media. They wasn't outside. A lot of them. They wasn't outside to fully contextualize many things in the culture. Now, and I always come back to this, but also Jay-Z. So it's really on us, I think, to decide what the legacy is going to be like in the future. And that might be why he's lobbying for it now, particularly in the wake of some of the accusations about him. And then if you're a follower of, what's her name, Sloan Bella, the celebrity psychic, the one who predicted the fall of Sean Combs, with down to the month, she had her own musings about what is coming down the pipeline, for somebody like Jay-Z. But yet and still, many people, a lot of people currently, it's hard for them to contextualize Jay-Z. He appeals to an older audience now. Hip hop is over 50 years old, and it's to some of the things you talk about, right? Is it capitalism or the American dream?
Right.
Even the recent concert announcement where people were like, yo, he changed his name. What is that? And I'm like, oh, they don't know that Jay-Z came out with the umlaut on his name. They don't know that that's how he came out on Reasonable Doubt. Like that's the
Actually take a brief, like, not commercial break, but a segment break to talk about Jay-Z's infinite monikers. Because he's been Hove, right? Like there's a Hove era. Like there's a Hove era where it was like he would not get on a track without being like Hove. Like he understands so much about signature vocal arrangements that he would use specific tags when he was jumping on tracks during specific eras. And I'm like, if this is the Jigawig era, first of all, that is the funniest joke I've ever heard about Jay-Z. The Jigawigs is the funniest joke I've ever heard.
Illuminati theorists claim that it might not be what we think it is. You know what I'm saying?
Really? What's the theory? What's
I mean, well, the pandemic revealed to a lot of us what some of our celebrities actually look like, you know? and also, or like recently Sean Combs was looking like the villain in Serpent in the Rainbow during the court. When they had them drawings out, Serpent in the Rainbow gave me nightmares as a kid. And when they had the drawings, the court drawings, Diddy was looking like old boy from Serpent in the Rainbow.
Diddy was looking like Danny Glover, bro. He was Danny Glover.
I'm getting too old for this.
I'm getting too old for this shit. I mean, yo, also the beanie in that interview, that was like the highest altitude beanie top I've ever seen. And that was like, what would be the reason to have such an extra large beanie on? And I was like, maybe it's a sew-in. Maybe it's like a sew-in jigawig for the beanie.
I'm gonna put my see, a lot of people don't know about my real roots and that I'm like 70% Hotep. That shit is probably some, you know, the theorists are gonna talk about it's occult symbolism. You know what I mean? They're gonna talk about it's occult. They're like, yo, he reads Crowley.
He's Aleister Crowley.
He's out here reading Crowley. He's out here hanging out with, you know what I mean?
I mean, Prodigy tried to tell us. Why did Prodigy die, right? Like, listen, Prodigy tried to tell us about him. But yeah, I mean, before the CIA cuts us off, I think Jay-Z's been super crafty and deft at changing form. Like whether it's him jumping on and aping different styles throughout his career. Because here's a one I would love for you to reflect on. Has Jay-Z ever been the most popular rapper when he was out? Like in terms of putting out rap records and being popular, whether by sales, whether by pop cultural influence?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
When? I say no, but when was Jay-Z the most popular rapper out? Because there's someone who I could say in every era was at least as big or bigger influence than Jay-Z.
Who's that?
Well, I mean, go through the eras because he's been in many eras.
That's part of it. That even if that's the case, in each era there may have been a person, but in every era there's Jay-Z.
So okay, let's just go 96 through let's go through 96 through 2000. Let's just try 96 through 2000.
No, so there's from 96 to 2000, the buildup is very strong because of Hard Knock Life, volumes 1 and 2.
So in 98, could we say that he was potentially the biggest rapper in 98?
Maybe not, but by 2001 potentially, which is why it's relevant for him to have a reasonable doubt. It's not just the anniversaries. It's an interesting buildup by the time you get to Blueprint, because Blueprint, I think, is Jay-Z recognizing his position.
Yes, and his full power.
And
that's him at his peak powers, I would say, between Blueprint and Blackout.
Right? And we're not in a space yet where our value systems changed and evolved and all of that. He's mid-affirmation. And on top of that, you have multiple moments from Kanye West approaching his prime.
Right.
And Just Blaze.
Right.
Right? You have anthemic songs.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing I think people forget about, and this is why some of it is generational, and this gripe, this thorn I have with it not being in your historical memory if it wasn't on social media or something weird like that. There was a moment where everyone was rapping like Jay-Z.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
At least all the commercial artists, and many others, not just commercial artists, many others, street level artists.
Yes.
I can't say that all the mechanics were of his creation, because Jay-Z also, I think, was inspired by other artists. I think Young Chris and Neef inspired him.
Of course.
I think some of the Philadelphia rappers and sound from State Property inspired him.
Right.
You know? But he's still Jay-Z. Yeah. And yo, you had copycats coming out, even from people who were degrees away from Jay-Z. Angie Martinez tried to put out a rapper that sounded like Jay-Z.
Yeah, Sicario.
Yeah. Sicario sounded like Jay-Z, and he wasn't even the only one.
And
like,
you
how
know what else?
shine?
Angelus.
Yo.
There were some others too. You could say also early Joe Budden, because like now Joe Budden's the podcaster.
You mean early Lil Wayne?
Absolutely.
Not early Lil Wayne, sort of. I'm talking about Lil Wayne, who himself discusses how inspired he was by Jay-Z.
Yes, he says
Lil Wayne.
How about T.I.? How about T.I.?
Oh my gosh!
Like multiple artists from the South would openly proclaim themselves as students of Jay-Z.
I will say this: there was a pervasive argument about these other regional rappers, the ones emerging to the top, being artists who sounded more like New York artists.
Yes.
Right? That can be argued, whether it's Jay Electronica, Lil Wayne, T.I., when compared to other rappers from their region.
Yeah.
If that is the case, I would throw in that's because of Jay-Z specifically.
Yeah.
That's how I would say. That's how big his influence was.
Yes. I mean, this is what I would say he mastered. I think my premise is that he was never, or he could be argued as not the most popular in any era, but is the most popular across eras. So it's a little bit of like a LeBron career arc. Like you might not have reached the highest peak of anyone, but your overall 20-year run is unmatched, right? Like it's
but I would argue that in that period, around the time of Blueprint, maybe a little before, maybe a little after.
Yeah.
I believe that he may have been the most popular because...
But hey, there's a Jay-Z line for that.
I'm sure.
Only dudes moving units, M-Pimp, Juice, and us. Oh. Like at almost every era, he himself says, I realize I'm not as like honestly, the Biggie era, he says, he jumps on a song with Big with the acknowledgement, with the recognition, like this dude is hotter than I am. Like in the street right now, in terms of what he's doing on the radio and mainstream, this dude is killing. And I have to make sure that people understand who I am and what I can bring to this particular music game, right? I think that chip on his shoulder of not being recognized as the best is actually what propels him to a 20-year career. Like makes him so conscious of his lack of recognition. Love, I don't get enough of it. There's a Jay-Z line for everything. He's very conscious.
It's funny you mention that because that crystallizes by the time you get to Blueprint. And I say that because Reasonable Doubt is that moment we have with Jay-Z and Notorious B.I.G. on a track together, outdoing one another, friendly competition. Yeah. I need to prove that I can be with the big dogs, right? Yes. That's the same album that he tried to get Nas on.
Yes.
That Nas famously, for whatever reason, didn't make that appearance, right? And then 5 years later, you get Blueprint, and Blueprint has Takeover on it. Yeah. Not only, and that's kind of further evidence potentially to why he was number one, because you're at that spot where people are going. You have the only feature on it is Eminem, on an Eminem produced track, and he's feuding with Nas,
DMX.
But he's specifically feuding with Nas. He's specifically feuding with Prodigy.
Yes.
I feel like he might have had court battles going on at that time.
Yeah.
And
who was the Crip rapper who he was also kind of like taking subliminal shots at. Oh my God. He was like a famous, oh man, underground street rapper, noted Crip, and in Takeover, he's sort of the subject of the "you only get half a bar, fuck y'all niggas, all you other taking shots at Jigga." It's oh my God, I'm dying that I don't remember this name, but it was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to go to
Put it in the comments.
the boards. Yeah, put it, yeah, chat, chat, help
I'm
us
not
out.
I'm not gonna front like I didn't take a couple bong rips before this. Normally I'm like the guy who's like, it's so and so. You know what I mean?
Oh, you know what? J.O. felony, my nigga. J.O. felony.
Oh my God.
Listen, when's the last time? First of all, I'm gonna be very unk in this one and be like, when the last time you heard that name? When the last time you heard about J.O. felony?
That's the thing, man. It's like, who are people remembering that there's a canon to look back on? And
Yeah,
that gives you a lot
and
more.
he is canon. He is rap
He
canon.
is canon. He is canon. There you go. He is canon. That's him. I'm usually who they whisper about, either what chick he with or his chip amount. Cause I've been doing this since Chips was out. Watching Eric Estrada, bagging up at the Ramada, table full of powder, AC broke. About to take another shower on my 25th hour. Spike Lee's everywhere, game with a flight. You might see me anywhere, day in the life. Only thing that changed the tail number on the flight. I can touch down and take off the same night. I'm so bossy, bitch, get off me. Trick, get off me, you can't get shit off me. I'm so flossy, no sixes on sprees. Lay back, Maybachs. Don't even talk to me.
You know what's so great about that style that you mentioned that birthed so many rappers? Because I think it's important to, like I said, like you said, cite the history, show that he is canon, that he is unassailable, unimpeachable as an artist and a master of his craft. And as a businessman and a commodity, he took a style, he made rap Costco. He was like, yo, I'm gonna give you niggas white label raps, nigga. Like, I'm gonna give y'all niggas, you can put your name on it too. Like, I don't, like, distribute it. Like, I already made that shit so you niggas can run around because I have so many styles I can do and so many styles I can potentially adopt. I'm not even worried about the style I gave y'all little niggas. Like, yeah, Wheezy, go ahead.
Didn't he cleared the sample for Annie for everyone.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think what that kind of commodification that Jay did, I think he was the best at that in rap. He was the best at turning the art that came out of hip hop into a commodity that was undefinable and invaluable. Like, I don't think you can assign a value to it. And he was the person to first assign the highest value and reap that value once he put a price tag on it. I
He
think
might
that's
not have been the he might not have been the first person. That might have been that may arguably have been Sean Combs and Notorious B.I.G.
that's a great argument. Dr. Dre has an argument for it as well.
And well, Dr. Dre, I don't know at that time because Dr. Dre was locked up into
Yeah,
bad
he was in the
deals.
slave deal. He was in the slave
He was
deal.
locked up in bad deals. Maybe Easy E,
Maybe Eazy-E, yeah,
maybe
being the
Easy E,
entrepreneur.
maybe Ice Cube, maybe Ice Cube.
And fill in this name for me. Blank Robinson from Sugar Hill Records. Sylvia Robinson. She might have been the actual first to bring hip hop as an art form into the business world, into the record industry. So not to ever overlook Sylvia Robinson in terms of the things that she did and the sort of adoption full on of capitalism because she had niggas in slave deals as well. So it's not necessarily the first, possibly the best at it, possibly still the best at turning hip hop into a commodity. What would you say to that?
I would say maybe so. It's also like it's interesting hip hop into okay. It's it's like owning a team. There's a lot of NBA parallels here, right? You know, like who's the player that first broke through to start having $1 million deals, right? As a professional athlete, there's like that question, right? And then there's the issue of what happens when one of those players becomes bedfellows with team ownership and they treat players like previous team owners did, but then espouse that they're not like those team owners because they came from where you came from. That's what makes Jay-Z a paradox to some of us.
Yes, yes. I mean, he both entered the capitalist vortex, which, make no mistake, we are all in. Like, I'm not one of the people who thinks, although I believe in versions of, first of all, CIA, please don't take me out. I believe in versions of anarchy as in no single leader, not anarchy as in chaos. Anarchy as in no single leader. I believe in versions of that. I believe in versions of cooperative economics. I do believe in versions of that, and I practice local and personal versions of that. But we are all, make no mistake, in the system of capitalism, and we are all fighting through and constantly trying to survive within that system. And Jay-Z, in that interview with Fraser Tharp, he acknowledges that. He says, "Hey, this is the code I was given. Like, I'm not an idealist. I'm a realist," he says. "I understand that this is the world I live in. I'm playing by these rules." But I think what might be omitted there, even in an admission like that, is that the rules are that there are no rules, right? I think that's one of the things that he alludes to, but doesn't necessarily elaborate. And I think that's one of the gifts of his brevity. It gives him that kind of flexibility, the versatility to dodge out of a question like that. But even though he wasn't given the rules, he understood intrinsically that there are no rules, that you shape the rules by how much money and power that you have. And we're all under that kind of governance. Now, whether or not that will change us, whether or not that will create our suffering is another issue entirely, right? But he acknowledges it. He says, he takes to heart that they're calling me a capitalist, but I was just taught that the American dream is something we're all supposed to strive for. And I'm striving for it. And I did the thing that this American dream codifies. Now, we have to ask ourselves, and I think this is a question for ourselves. I think it's a question for the fans, for the people, not for him. Jay-Z's already done it. We have to ask ourselves, do we implicitly endorse him doing that by enjoying his music, by going to his concerts, by adopting and relishing the memories we have with his music? Are we saying that we also adopt those systems, that we also implicitly believe those values of capitalism, dog eat dog, gain at any cost, the ends justifies the means? Like, do we then endorse that because he is such an avatar of it? That's my bigger question about Jay-Z.
We can ask that about so many artists now because the longer we live with them and the more we have access to people's lives, the more we can critique their mistakes. And look at Bill Cosby. And I say that in no advocacy of Bill Cosby's crimes. I say that because Dave Chappelle posed that when he went through the many decades building legacy of Bill Cosby and his contributions to the Black community, to comedy and television, to society, to the civil rights movement, to Black colleges and to the perception of Black college and education and perceptions of Black family and fatherhood and all of those things, while simultaneously committing heinous crimes for a really long time.
Well, you know what? That really brings me to, because I think I'm glad you brought up Cosby and Chappelle in this, and I'm glad that we're talking about the question of billionaires. My question more specifically is, why hasn't a Black billionaire explored universal basic income? Like, why is it that the Black billionaires in our system, in our structure, have only abided by a capitalist ethic once they got to the top? And I think there are
because
multiple reasons for that. I don't think that's a simple answer. And I also don't think it comes down exclusively to personal choice. I think there are things that are dangerous about um, distributing wealth that way or distributing opportunities that way. But I'm wondering why, as individuals, Cosby, Chappelle, Jay-Z didn't explore things like that.
I think that potentially in some ways, maybe they believed they were, right? Like in becoming enterprising and creating enterprises where I can hire or quote unquote open doors, they believe that they're somehow being maybe more revolutionary than the system would actually allow if it was truly revolutionary. And also, and maybe it is related to a simple answer of in these systems, you idealize what you've seen, and Black billionaires didn't see a white man do that first.
Yeah, that's also a great.
Why do Black billionaires suddenly have to do it is also a question. If no other billionaires had to do it, it's interesting. It's interesting that the question of moral fabric and character always comes into play when Black people are at the podium for something that everyone else has done.
And Jay-Z brings up that point in the interview, right? He says he alludes to the lyric. Well, the interviewer Fraser Tharp, who again shout him out, he did a brilliant job. But he alludes to the lyric that Jay-Z spit when he was talking about like, why don't you have this energy for the Carnegies of the world, right? Like, why don't you have this energy for and here's why I think it's important to be historically sound and grounded. We talk a lot about Marcus Garvey because, we grew up near Marcus Garvey Boulevard. We understand Marcus Garvey as one of the greatest Black icons of liberation movements in history, right? But Marcus Garvey also failed at some major movements to try to get Black people free, to give us autonomy, to get us free. And it wasn't a failure of imagination. Like he tried to bring the mass of Black people to the continent of Africa to repatriate and create some kind of like Black utopia with the autonomy, with the resources that we needed to rebuild. But even though he didn't have a failure of imagination, he wasn't logistically prepared. So one of the greatest missions in Black history, like the Black Star Line, getting them to Africa, was really muddled by a few things. So for instance, most of the people who could afford a Black ticket on the Black Star Line were like the Black bourgeois. Even though Negro World, his newspaper, Marcus Garvey's newspaper, had millions of subscribers, which in the time was unheard of. Like I always say, Marcus Garvey was the first influencer. Having millions of subscribers in the days of the print press is insane. And he had literally millions of Black people from all over the world subscribing to Negro World. But those subscriptions were mostly like workaday people. The people who could afford a ticket on the Black Star Line, which is what funded it, which was what allowed him to buy ships, were largely Black elites, people who were very wealthy, who had businesses, who had maybe generationally owned land, potentially property. Those people were the select few that he was trying to get over to the continent. So it's a little muddled by that, right? Like, how do you start a liberation movement where you're only kind of like peeling people off of the top at the very, very top of the pyramid? But then the other thing it was muddled by was like many Pan-African movements, niggas ain't want him there. He got to Liberia and the president of Liberia was like, yeah, so, you know what I mean? So even though we may idealize, to your point, we may idealize Black leadership, we may idealize Black utopias and Black freedom and Black agency, but the reality, like Jay-Z talked about in his realism point, is that niggas is individuals and have their own hopes, goals, dreams, fears, motives. They have their own families, more simplistically, and they're not gonna deliver you from shit. Like the Black billionaire class, nor even any individual is gonna deliver you from shit just because you want them to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we're not saying Jay-Z's Marcus Garvey, because that's the first thing people are gonna be like, oh, so y'all compare. It's more about.
He said Garvey got me a Molotov cocktail. Like he has claimed it. He has claimed it. We're
I'm
not
saying
saying
that we're not saying that,
we're not
right?
saying
Yeah, because but also
there's a Jay-Z line for everything.
it's a question about the black ideas of leadership. I think is important, what you raised, and also the perception of that. Because even like W.B. Du Bois didn't fuck with Marcus Garvey.
Nope.
A. Philip Randolph, I think, didn't rock with Marcus
Nope.
Garvey.
Nope. Right? He was a hater. A. Philip Randolph was like an open hater.
Yeah. So so now when you get to romanticize all of these characters later on in the movement of black, in the black struggle, you don't have those type of. So that's what we're gonna get with Jay-Z, right? Like at one point it was aspirational, where Jay-Z was talking about breaking down corporate doors, getting the funding, ownership. There was a lot of things that we consciously and subconsciously celebrated, which is partly why he got to where he got to, and his own, obviously, business acumen. But he maintained an audience through all of that too, right? Maybe it became more polarized now, and then you can't win for losing. You know what I'm saying? Then you get vulnerable and personal, and now it's about all these other things, right? Because 444, before 444, he was critiqued for kind of being only. It's always great with Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? I got a good life, man. He got those, right? And 444 was kind of this mature humanizing, and then, he
was pilloried. A large section of the fan base and people who are only here for the how to win friends and influence people version, that part departed because they weren't here for the vulnerability, right? Like, and also vulnerability wasn't marketable before a certain time period. Before white women decided to sell like self-care practices and meditation after they like snaked you in the workplace and felt guilty about it. Before white men decided to start apps like Headspace after going off to learn how to be a Buddhist and then coming back and selling B2B apps for people to work longer and harder hours because we got them to meditate. Before all that shit happened, vulnerability was not popular. It was never fucking popular to show your soft side or your weakness. And Jay-Z, he made that transition in terms of his content, and people didn't appreciate it.
Or perhaps he made that transition and it was recognizable that it was very timely.
Yes.
Like the music allowed more space through other artists where vulnerability was marketable now. So now you can be on your marketable shit in that way. More in touch, right? And it plays in. I think Jay-Z's aware of the narrative he shapes about himself in a lot of ways.
He's hyper aware.
Yeah, and I think that's not limited to just him, even in his partnership, personally and otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, like I said, up to us to decide how we weigh not just the legacy of Jay-Z, but I guess anyone is long enough. I used to say back in the day that I could see Jay-Z in his older years running for some type of political office, right? Or particularly something with that alignment of power in a space like New York. Yeah. Because it also follows kind of the natural progression of these characters in that American dream scenario.
Yes.
Like we still have Kennedys in the White House till this day.
Yes. Yes.
And that's,
you know what? I think it's actually beneath him now. I think politics is actually beneath him. I think he sees that you can shape politics more in the position where he is now than being like a front facing, even though he comes from an artist background. I think that's actually like kind of like, this is ghetto shit. Like, I'm not trying to be part of you like kleptocrats and like thieves and goons. Like, I actually have real prestige now.
Well, it's slightly apolitical, but when you have direct commentary, like you said, about how he's framing himself in the narrative, like it's like in that the title B-sides concert freestyle where he talked about YouTube, he talked about iPhone, he talked about the consumer making those choices, but then the only one they hating the only one they hating in the room look like you, Lucy. You got some splaining to do, right? Like
Yeah.
holding a mirror of black people that way. I thought was
There's a
interesting.
Jay-Z line for everything.
Yeah,
Um,
there
that's
are.
such a great, first of all, that's such a great parallel that I want to bring up another Garvey anecdote. And it really pertains to this specific Jay-Z example. Like when you get big and you are seen as this paragon of your people. So Marcus Garvey had the Black Star Line, and what he wanted to do at first was have only black engineers and captains on the steamboat. But because of the time it was, which is the early 20th century, not a lot of black people were actually trained to run steamships. And so he eventually had to capitulate and bring white crew members to get those steamships to travel across the world. The other thing that he was doing was like getting surplus steamships from like the government and other shipping companies, and sometimes they didn't work very well. So when Garvey was touring, so he became kind of like a touring speaker in order to raise money for the Black Star Line. There would be times where his steamships broke down. Like, so they would go from New York and be headed for Panama, the Panama Canal, and be like, yo, we ran out of fuel and we're having some engine problems. We got to stop over in the port at New Orleans to figure out like what the mechanical problems are going to be once we have to like go venture forth. And during one of these journeys, so he was slated to go to Panama to speak to, actually, no, it wasn't Panama. He was slated to go to Guyana to speak to basically his acolytes, his legions that were down for the Garvey movement. They were down for the repatriation effort. And because his ship broke down, he had to tell his contact in Guyana, like, yo, look, I know I charge niggas 50 cents for the ticket and there's over 250 people, but I gotta charge $1. And the dude was like, the promoter was like, chill, bro. Like you already got the money from these people. Like you basically asking them for a second charge to show up. And he was like, yeah, bro, my ship broke down. Like, what the fuck I'm supposed to do? I won't get there unless you charge these people that. So the guy goes back and the people pay the money, right? They pay that double fee. So it was 50 cents. Garvey charged them $1. When he got there and he went to the fucking speaker hall, they booed and heckled him and threw shit at him. They threw rotten food at Marcus Garvey. And you know what his response was? He was basically like, that's why niggas can't get nowhere. He was like, that's why you pathetic Negroes will never be anything. And like, yo, Jay-Z's basically saying that to us. He's like, listen, I done got the apps. I done fucking got the billions. And y'all gonna call me a capitalist after all that shit?
Got up
I
out his
was like,
chair. They made Jay-Z get up out his chair. You know what I'm saying? At the barbecue, at the repast, they made him get up out his chair. He's like, "Oh, you gonna make me rap?" He stayed giving you that finger wag vibration rap now. Like, "Oh, you gonna make me get up out my chair and give you a talking to?" You know what I'm
so,
saying?
yo, Jay-Z be scolding his listeners. That's great. He's always scolded his listeners. He's actually one of the brilliant, like, rap originators of that ethos. Like, oh yeah, you ain't doing it like me. Like, please sit down.
Don't even talk to me. He
Yeah.
said, "Don't even talk to
Yeah,
me."
yeah. Very Marcus Garvey, actually. Very Marcus Garvey in that sense. So yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing to analyze a character like Jay-Z, but I would say it's extremely fun to put his legacy on the line in sports and tail of the tape terms. So right now he's selling tickets to uh, a three date show in New York, right? One being Reasonable Doubt. That's the show is just gonna be dedicated to Reasonable Doubt material, 30-year anniversary. The next one being Blueprint, 25-year anniversary, and then there's a kind of like overflow show. Now, as authorities in the space, I would like to call myself an authority in the space. I really debated with myself which album was better and for what reasons. Initially, I slept on Jay-Z and I was like, I don't know if people are gonna pack the house for a Reasonable Doubt show. Like a reason, I didn't think it was like a show style album, but Jay-Z is so big, he sold out immediately, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I would pose that question to you, especially as an artist. Which do you think is the more performance leaning album? And which do you think is like the better show? Because like my personal opinion, for instance, is that like Black Album is his best arena style album. Like you could go through 7 track run on Black Album and the entire stadium would be going crazy. But between Reasonable Doubt and Blueprint, which have aged very differently, which would you say is more the like arena album?
Probably Blueprint. Probably Blueprint. Um, he did the Jay-Z Unplugged, MTV Unplugged,
Yeah, yeah,
had Blueprint joints.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Summer Jam, the whole Summer Jam moment
yeah,
is
yeah,
is Blueprint connected,
yeah,
right? That's kind of in a way somehow some of that was announced.
yeah.
And I think he was also seasoned. I think that's his like 6th album or something like that. So there's a lot of that. There's experience being on like the big when was Backstage? That was around
That
Blueprint,
was
right?
98, 98. Yeah.
So that's yeah.
That was
I
my first rap concert. Oh, I went
see.
to the Apollo stop on the Backstage tour.
That's amazing actually.
That was and I remember it so vividly because you know what I remember so much, and I'll probably put this in the piece as well, that I didn't care when Jay-Z was coming on stage. Like I loved his music. By that point, I was, he was a staple in New York. He's all over the radio. He's been out for years. But I didn't like it didn't move me that his stage performance was upcoming at that point in the concert. And he was a top biller, like easily a top biller. Like it wasn't he had the joints, he had the songs. That there was no doubt about that, but his performance was not the thing that got me, or I think even the crowd, as hyped as others at the time.
You're not a Jay-Z zealot, but Jay-Z talks about I don't have to be all animated like Busta Rhymes,
Right,
right?
right, right,
And
right,
I think
right, right.
another brilliant aspect of him is I think it was wondered at a time what that performance is like in that space.
Yeah.
And this is an artist who did hold the attention of audiences in stadiums alongside touring with DMX and comments
Yes.
on it, right? Like, I got to follow up DMX who got people crying, praying, you know what I'm saying?
Well, he understood that the weight of his words had to be riveting, right? Like where his animation wouldn't necessarily need to be riveting. His words have to hold that much more power.
Not just that, I think there's a brilliance in how he can deliver that in a subdued way. I have to mention this in just in the legacy of things, and also because to put it also beyond Jay-Z and to show the impact of that. Rest in peace, Brownsville Ka, right?
Rest in peace, Brownsville Ka.
Ka is a person that after first hearing his record and then telling my homies, he's about to do a show, it was wondered, what's that going to come off like? Because there was this subdued approach in his style, right? And I was at that show and it was amazing. He was killing you softly. You heard every word. He wasn't whispering to you per se, right? He's also the first artist I saw use in-ear monitors.
Wow.
Which meant he was conscious of how I want to sound just like this and I don't want to overdo it or scream or whatever because I'm misgauging the
Do you think Jay-Z uses in-ear monitors now? I would guess he does.
I think it's about understanding that I'm going to deliver and use my voice in a very intentional way that's bringing you into the space of the song the same way that you heard it, but with me here, I'm talking to you. It gives you that I'm talking directly to you effect.
That's
And
that's such a
a lot of
phenomenal skill.
people, Jay-Z resonates with people because it becomes max axiom, it becomes mantra because you felt like he was talking to you. He's
I'm just
motivating
talking
you.
to you.
I'm
I'm
just
just
talking.
talking through you. Yo, there's a Jay-Z line for everything. I want to ask you the same question or a related question about the in-ear monitor piece and how aware and astute he is about his performance style and maximizing his specific talents and expression, especially in comparison to someone like Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl, which is incredibly animated and involves a lot of motion. Do you think Jay-Z could do the Super Bowl?
Yes.
I think so too.
Yes, especially at these points in his career. Because here's the thing: you think Jay-Z is going to do the Super Bowl and not bring out Beyonce?
Right. Well, that's an obvious one, right? That's
You
an
know what I'm
obvious
saying?
one.
Um, so there's that, and I mean, after all, we watched Dr. Dre and company do the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so I could
But
definitely think.
Kendrick was the first solo rap artist to do the Super Bowl.
I'm sorry.
Kendrick was the first solo rap artist to do the Super Bowl. Like they before it had been, it was Dr. Dre and Aftermath. So you got 50 Cent, you got an Eminem medley. Jay-Z, I think he could, like you're saying and implying, I think he could do the individual Super Bowl performance and kill.
I think he could as well, and he has the catalog to back it up.
Right.
Um,
Would
and
he? Do you think he would?
I don't know if he would, but I want to draw a parallel there to Bad Bunny's performance, and his vocal tone is is in a specific place. He didn't over exaggerate or over frame how he normally presents himself because it was the Super Bowl, right? He delivered his Bad Bunny thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was further
Hey,
testament to
hey.
like, yeah, that type of vocal awareness, um, that type of being able to make a large show still feel personal.
Absolutely. So I want to put a ribbon on this by asking you as a rap artist and a rap expert, um, what we can learn from the Jay-Z story arc, both as artists and as listeners. So I think there are things to learn that overlap in those roles for me as an artist and as a listener. But I'm curious to hear what you think we can learn from Jay-Z's arc because he's obviously the kind of person who we won't really appreciate until he's gone.
That's a big one. I think a lot of it was stated, particularly when you recognize that he has a line for all of it, where he talks about eventually becoming the villain, um, where he questions who we are to critique him, which is an interesting question, right? You of course you're going to be critiqued. You're big. You're larger than life, right? Um, at the same time, the point is more like, how can you critique something that you haven't fully understood?
Right, right,
Right. Both
right.
both in the micro of critiquing a record after hearing it for 40 hours. It dropped 40 hours ago, and now you got this deep dive on it. And it's someone put like 4 or 5 years of their life or past memories or processed their childhood, or you right, and you listen to it, it came out 40 hours ago and you got a whole deep dive critique. Um, and it's also like, who are you to critique my journey, one that you can't even have walked? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think questioning Jay-Z in those ways is more effective as a model on how to question our relationship with the American dream in general and how that's changing.
Absolutely.
Because inevitably, if you have a long career, if you start to have a 30 plus year career in the public space,
Unheard of.
the things you're doing will potentially not keep up with or run in a different direction, potentially where society's heading.
Right,
And there's similar questions we've raised with someone like maybe even Dave Chappelle.
right, right.
If that's a byproduct of wealth as well. Is it a byproduct of wealth? Is it a byproduct of artists in a state of success and isolation? Maybe, maybe not, because I don't think Sade is a person who remained isolated from fame. Maybe
Right.
not, right? Right. Wealth is, but fame, and seems to made that a conscious choice. So yeah, it could be Jay-Z because, it could be anything. And that's why it's an interesting mirror he holds in like that title B-sides freestyle, because it's not that dissimilar from someone calling out another person for a brand choice they're making while they're using an iPhone on Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like there's a very good and instructive meme about this thing, which is that both the iPhone and Twitter thing, but also about the American dream. It's important and aware to have a critique of those ideas and also the pathway that some choose, but also to have a self-critique. Like I think those are equally important things. I think it's equally important to criticize the system and the people who take that path because it's the most available path to them, and to say in criticizing, uh maybe I'm defecting in my empathy as a human. Maybe I'm not offering compassion and grace where I could, which I think is lost in this particular social media era. Like it's much easier, and just in this era of fame, in this era of humanity, it's much easier to point at the bigger power, the bigger force, and say that's the reason why I'm where I am.
And maybe Jay-Z takes some of the stances. It goes back to something you mentioned, you asked earlier. Why aren't the billionaires the ones that turn around and fix it all and create universal incomes, etc.? Jay-Z talks about these. It's funny, he doesn't outright talk about them. It used to be an interesting lore about Jay-Z's altruism, right? Like him funding Meek Mill's legal defense.
Right.
Or Beanie Siegel has a line in What We Do, made hood holidays. He's talking about Dollar Day and Marcy.
Yeah.
They ain't thank us though. That's what he said.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of other stories like that circulate around things that Jay-Z did and chose not to make public.
Right.
And it eked out, and they were seemingly these genuine acts of financiership or altruism or attempts to put your money in spaces in the culture.
Listen, all I hear about is niggas I made millionaires milling about, spilling their feelings in the air. There's a Jay-Z line for everything.
For everything, dog. So that may affect someone who now it's their responsibility to fix it all. And if you buy the narrative, the Jay-Z narrative, both the Jay-Z narrative and the American Dream narrative of someone who made it from all odds against him, whether it's the Kennedy story or the Carter story, it's about also how, no, I was living the American nightmare first.
Yeah.
How dare you say I can't? I don't know if this is it's a fair parallel, but it's kind of like how every group that got reparations comes up in the argument for reparations, and how the only group who didn't get it is black people. It's like, why is it when it's my turn to get it, now you want to critique it? Right? Now you want to say it doesn't work or it doesn't help after all y'all got it?
Right.
Right.
But then, the fair critique, right, is I don't struggle and claw and fight to survive to become the monster that tried to eat me. Like I think there are a lot of people in the world who feel that way. And maybe you could tag us as naive. Like let's say Jay-Z looks at me and calls me an idealist, right? Because of that kind of ethic. Maybe he in his mind, or maybe people who become that powerful are like, you better be comfortable with becoming the monster that you once feared. Maybe he's saying that or thinking that, but I'm thinking in terms of when I talk about Garvey and all his failings potentially or his flaws, I'm thinking about like, what if there is an imagined world, there is an ethic that I can pursue that does not require me to eat everything alive in order to be alive? Like maybe there is an altruistic version of me that doesn't need to also like undercut people or undermine people. And I don't think that Jay-Z is like some example of evil. Like don't get me wrong, and I don't want anyone to get me twisted in that sense. But I do think in his declaration of himself as a realist, he is saying quite palpably, there's no way to do what I've done that didn't happen this way. And I respect him for that. I only want the opportunity to do it my way too. Because, I'm a human. We all want the opportunity to do it our way. I'm just hoping that we can imagine as Black boys who grew up in Brooklyn, a way that doesn't require us to eat people alive. Like when his name gets mentioned, in the Epstein email. And I'm not talking about the specious claims that a tip line said about him and Pusha T. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when Jeffrey Epstein mentioned him in the email, and he says specifically, I'm going to read the line out loud. So pardon any delay right here, Cav, because I think you understand the importance of citation. Yo, what happened to the cited? You remember the
Hashtag cited. And
hashtag
also there's a
cited?
Distinction. While you find that, I want to make a distinction.
Yeah, please
I
do.
don't know if people caught the Jay-Z mention in the Epstein files, and that the Epstein files is both testimonies from an anonymous tip line and the emails. So
Yes,
what Drew
different.
is sharing is something where he's referenced in the email, as opposed to what everyone else capitalized clickbait-wise on, which is this claim with Jay-Z and Pusha T, which again, y'all wasn't outside. So
That wasn't
y'all don't have the right type of context clues. And I'm kind of like, 1997 Pusha T, yeah, I don't know if the Illuminati was sending him invitations yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think
But
so.
I don't know if, like, I'm still in the club, Jay-Z. I don't own a club yet here. Jay-Z is getting like early in
4 a.m. on my way to the club, he wasn't illuminated.
he was still on his way to the club, you know what I'm saying?
He was still on his way to the club. But
That doesn't mean that he didn't
sure.
I think one thing to point out about him potentially acknowledging there's no way this doesn't happen for me this with any other way.
Mm-hmm.
The mirror that I guess to your point about we all need to hold to ourselves is, in that way that I chose to do that, did I become the things I didn't want to be?
And you may think that you don't.
That's a great question.
But then when you're creating business enterprises that operate in the same systems that you said worked against you,
Yeah.
and that you said aren't designed to support you, and you're breaking down these doors, and then you create enterprises that model that very system, then maybe you are potentially disenfranchising others to get
ahead. Remember when you couldn't find pictures of Nas and Beyonce on the internet? Just put a pin in that. So this is an email from Jess Staley of Blue Mountain Capital to Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein is actually in a conversation. He's in an ongoing conversation about uh, whether the United States will ever become like some of these other nations and like succumb to certain kinds of like government collapse. And they end up getting to this point where they're talking about culture. And Jess Staley says, "You want to know why we are not Sao Paulo? Watch the TV ads on the Super Bowl. It's all about hip blacks in hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by Jay-Z."
So he's clearly not the spook who sat by the door. Or is he? Or is he?
I know, that would be the greatest trick. That would be the greatest trick ever pulled.
The greatest trick the Jigga ever pulled.
The greatest was the Jigga wig.
The Jigga wig.
This
It all comes back to the Jigga wig.
Here's what's interesting about that. Because we talk about the pathways to wealth and how that wealth is supposed to influence the social fabric. And then stated quite plainly is the revolution needs to be financed.
Yeah.
Can you finance the revolution any other way?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right? And that's what's interesting too about that assessment from Jeffrey Epstein and friends about Jay-Z's influence, and potentially acknowledging its power, but acknowledging their ability to direct it in an alternate way, or maybe they thought they were and they weren't.
And also, how much
Jay-Z's here and Epstein is dead, allegedly.
Allegedly. And then allegedly, but how much do they know about things like Jay-Z and Beyonce funneling money to St. Louis Black Lives Matter activists in 2014? How much do they know about that? How much do they know about the inner workings of Jay-Z's financing other cultural arts movements, successful or unsuccessful? Like, his philanthropy has extended past where we can see, which is another like complicating factor. It's another mitigating factor. But I think, like we talked about, he has become so good at commodifying what's cool, what's black, what's hip hop, that even people in the most dastardly circles recognize him as the name. They didn't say bought off by Sean Combs. And he was doing he was doing provably more nefarious shit, more fucking disgusting, treacherous shit. And they said Jay-Z.
Yes, because we weren't aspiring to be Sean Combs. I think Sean Combs wanted us to aspire to be him. We more admired what he kicked down, it seemed. That was that part of that narrative.
Yeah.
But I think early on we understood that and accepted that Sean Combs probably did that with his fangs out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas with Jay-Z, the aspirational energy was given as a quote unquote blueprint that if you could follow, I'll show you how to do this, son.
Show you how to do this, son.
That
means none before it, none to come.
Yo, it's very Sagittarian if you want to take it there. Sagittarius is the teacher, and what more of a teaching mantra could you get than I'll show you how to do this, son?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this conversation. If anything, I hope that we benefited from it as two Black boys from Brooklyn. I hope that people who have similar aspirations and different aspirations can pursue them as powerfully as we did and as Jay-Z did in some other time in the near future and beyond, because I think it's enriching to chase your dreams. And I think no matter what you say about him, he chased his.
Yeah, and the takeaway is to do a real acknowledgement to what is motivating your desires. And if that resonates with who you say you are.
Yeah.
Because at no point of this did Jay-Z say he was anyone different than who we're observing now. I think we're just reconciling if that's what we want for ourselves. But that's it's great to have that example and it not have to be you sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yo, Smart Dumb Negus.
Smart
We
Dumb
just
Negus,
here.
you know what
We
I'm
just
saying?
here, man. We just here. Theorizing. Yo, I appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you too, my G, and I appreciate all y'all tapping in. And let them know about the Substack and where they can find it.
You can find the Substack on bigblackcommentary.substack.com. Big Black Commentary is where you can find the essays that can accompany these broadcasts. And you can also find this full episode on YouTube, Cav Wins, the platform.
Yes, sir. Signing off.
Yo.
Flourish, nigga. Flourish, nigga. Flourish.